So this time I will switch to English for that class. I'll try to speak slowly, but it's hard for me to be cognizant if I'm speaking fast or slow. So please raise your hand if you don't understand anything, or if you miss some words. I said that before. All these classes, they will be recorded, and I will put this on my YouTube channel. I will tell you what's the channel name. It's connected to my, my consulting company, and that's it. I think you'll be able to go back to this class and to look at the content, and if you have any questions, then as you know, you can go on Canvas and put your questions there and discussions. Does anybody have any question about Canvas or where to find the information? So please all go to the calendar and go on the charts. There's a PDF file. You can open the PDF file, take your notes on top of it, and we can start. So this is the first class. I call this day 1. And it's called Core Idea Selection Methods. So today we'll look at how to select ideas. And there's a lot of methods that we can use. But mainly, I think we'll use something that are quite straightforward. There could be some quite elaborated ways to do that. But I would just want to give you an overview of what can be done to select ideas. Should we close the door? Because I think there's some. OK, let me do it. OK. OK. All right. I'll make sure also the mic. OK, and I have a Bluetooth mic, so I think you should hear well, even though I'm far from the mic, from the camera, I mean. OK, so the reason for this course and learning goals, this is the first thing I like to go through. Usually what I do for this class, I do 45-minute sessions and then 15-minute break. So it doesn't, it's not too difficult for you to because I reckon you have to be concentrated to, really understand everything in this class. So I'll make sure that we don't work for too long. Do you know this class here in the curriculum, where it stands? So we have 2 parts, ideation and concepts. This is, where we have this class, and we actually impact the processus d'idéation, ideation process. And this is what will, the technique and the methods that we learn in this class, we'll be applying them in here, OK? There's really 2 parts to it, lectures. And the lectures, I'll let you know how do we evaluate ideas, concepts, at different level of maturity. So I think you can imagine that when you have an idea and when you think more and more about this thing, this idea might become better, right? So there's a maturity type of measurements that you can attach to an idea. And this is what I mean by different levels of maturity. What framework technology? Because actually, we don't do anything in ad hoc way. We actually also, there are methods, there are ways, better ways. We call this best practices to do this. And we'll actually learn in this class what are the best practices today that are used in the industry to evaluate ideas. OK? So it's important to understand that there are good ways and not so good ways to do this. Then we have the practice. So the practice is we really apply what we preach in this class. And for you, the practice has 2, I would say, embodiments. The first one is the cahier des idées. We put this in practice in the cahier des idées. And the second one is cahier des scénarios. So you put this in practice there. So you're going to apply everything you learn in this class in these 2 deliverables. OK? So the reason for this class is, I think, can be summarized in one picture, is the idea funnel. You know what a funnel is? Perhaps you use this for cooking. En français, c'est un entonnoir. Okay. L'entonnoir des idées. So the idea funnel is pictured as such is that first you have a lot of ideas. This is what you do in the Marathon des Idées. You're going to do that, I think, somewhere in the mountains, right? Are you going to go there in the mountains? Okay. And you have a bunch of ideas, and then you're going to select a few good ones here, and then reselect again for even better ones, and perhaps it's going to be the key idea here. This is a picture because I think in the Cahier des Idées, you're going to end up with 10 to 15 ideas here, okay? But basically, this is what you're going to do. And to apply these selections, there's basically 3 selection phases here. 1, 2, 3. You actually use the ideation tool. Yeah?
So if you don't choose some ID, so you make a selection.
Okay.
The ID that you don't use it.
That's a very good question.
You put it
Yeah.
somewhere, so
You shelve them for the next party. Basically, you say, you have a party, you buy a lot of stuff, and you haven't used everything, you put them, aside for the next party. Okay? So that's the idea. But that's a very good point because, perhaps an idea that you have today is not appropriate, not fit, but it could be a good one for next, right? This is exactly, and I like you ask this question because exactly the point why we use an idea management system. So we store all these ideas somewhere. And you can see in the thing I showed you before, if I just go back quickly to this, look at these numbers here. 42, 111, 179, 92, 148. These are all the ideas that your colleagues from the year before stored in the tool. Okay? So that's exactly your point, is that we store all these ideas so we can use them. I reckon that this year, you might have here 300, 400, perhaps even more, because here they all had to do this manually. So it was kind of a struggle to keep up with all this work, and also you lose focus because doing all this capture is not really creativity. So the good thing is that once we use the method I explained before, meaning the capture using voice, I think it will be much more efficient. But please ask your question at any time during this class. Oh, there you go. All right. So the idea selection funnel is really the goal and this will manage this with the tool. So here we have all the ideas, and only a few of this one end up here, and only a few of them end up here. But all these ideas, they stay in the tool at any time. Okay? So that's the first reason for this course. I'm teaching you here how to select these things. So these 3 lines that we have here, these are selection methods. And you can imagine that you don't use the same selection for, let's say, these 300 ideas, then for 10 or 2 or 1, okay? You don't select the same way. Basically, in brief, is that the fewer ideas you have, the more precise and detailed selection method you can apply, right? For instance, on this set of ideas, you can apply more parameters for selection. As opposed, when you have a lot of ideas, it's more, this one is good, this one is not good and stuff. I don't have time really to go for every ideas in details. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. What about the pace of my speech? Is that okay? Okay, good. Because I'm being cognizant, I'm trying to speak slowly. So, okay, good. This class also has 3 facets. Okay? So, here, it's all what I call the school of thoughts framework. It's to tell you that in the industry today, the industry of product innovation, product development, there are methods that exist, frameworks, and we'll see about some of these frameworks. Their school of creativity, their methods that people use. So we'll see about all these tools here that we have. Okay? Then the second facet is this. We look at technology. Because being creative and doing ideation or similar processes is not only about, taking pen and papers and post-it notes and put them on the wall or doing the idea wall like we do, but also you can use tools. And in this class, we actually explore tools as well. We look at the idea management tool. This is the idea management tool that we use, okay? What we do as well, we look also at technology like open innovation. Are you familiar with open innovation? Who have heard about open innovation before? Nobody. Okay, so you're gonna hear it very often. It's a concept today that is very applicable because today most of the knowledge is online. You want to know something, you don't know how to do it, what do you do? Probably the first thing you do. You Google it. That's it. That's the way it is, Before you used to go to the library, you look for a book, talks about it. So now it's actually, so the pace of change, the pace of innovation has really increased. And you can feel this yourselves, right? And think for your parents, grandparents, how it feels really to be put to the test every, few years. Hey, what's this new technology, trying to keep up with it. So everybody is in the same predicament and needs to keep up with the technology. So open innovation is actually how to leverage all this information online to use it in your projects, okay? Because you have to inspire yourself of what is done out there, right? You don't work in isolation, you inspire yourself of all the work that is done, outside. And the last here, we actually look at multiple, I would say, level of granularity for ideas. Because if you're doing R&D, research and development, or if you're managing a portfolio of idea, or if you're managing a company, it could be a small or large company, it's different focus. The focus is different in the sense that the important thing about the ideas are different. For instance, give me an example. If you're in R&D department, research and development, then any ideas are good because you don't have limitations in terms of budget, for instance, right? Or kind of a sales team you have then to go sell the idea to some customers. But if you're managing a corporation, if you're the CEO of a corporation, then what will matter to you when you have an idea, can we realize it with the current budget that we have, the current people that we have? Okay, so it's be more restrained. So that's why it differs if you're an R&D department, or if you're corporate, or if you do portfolio management. There's something in between. Then we'll go back to this. So here I'm just giving you an overview of the whole class, right? You don't have to remember everything now. If it's some things are not sticking, don't worry, we'll go back to it. So, learning goals for this course. First of all, is to know how to plan an idea selection process. So, after this class, you learn to plan an idea selection process for your own company, your employer, whatever you do after this class. But this is what you're learning here. And it's a key point, right? Because when you have a lot of people working together, you need to be able to say, how do we select a good idea? So, to put it simply, the goal of this class is how do you know when an idea is good or not? Okay, and good is defined as, is there a market for it? Is there interest? Can you make money with it? So that's the interest here. Know about real experience and settings. Okay, so know how people do. We'll see how people work at Google, at Disney, and other companies. Because all these companies, to come up with new ideas, they have an idea management process as well. Okay? Know the methods. So how can you select things? So we'll see there's several methods that we can use for select ideas. And anticipate, participate to the future of idea decision making. So, if you will know that there are idea management systems that exist, like the one we're going to use. There will be tools for assessment. Like, for instance, you'll know how to use Google Keep to capture ideas. And this is totally new for this class. So they haven't done it last year, but it's something I wanted to introduce for this task. And perhaps that's an important aspect of it. You learn ideas, you experiment ideas, you fail, because not everything is a good idea. You succeed, and you repeat, okay? Basic creativity is this: you have to learn, you have to fail, you have to succeed, you have to fail again to learn, okay? So that's the goal for this class. Do you have any questions about the goals? Is that clear? Okay, so I'm not speaking too fast, right? Okay, good. All right, so day one, this is today. We looked at core idea selection methods, so just general ways to select ideas. It's good that you know this now. So in a few weeks from now, when you have done the Marathon des Idées, and you need to start selecting, you have this in your head. So you give it a few weeks so you can simmer, and then you can say, I understood how that works, and I can apply myself. Then I'm going to talk about my own path, about innovation. Not that I want to talk about myself, but just to share my experience. That's it, because I have an experience with this, my own experience. And then we'll look at how to work with an R&D team, because you are an R&D team. You're a research development team. Each of your team, you're going to work on a project for a sponsor. Did you choose your sponsor already? The company you work with? Okay, you do? Okay. So you work with companies, and you really have the role of an R&D team, right? This is what you guys are doing. And R&D teams are not necessarily technicals, but I think we mix you guys between technical and non-technical people, right? Which I think is the best type of mix that we can have to be creative. Okay? That's day one. This is what we do this afternoon. We actually, this is we do capture. So we capture of ideas. We'll do the sorting next actually when I come back from Japan. I'll be back from Japan in 2 weeks, and we'll work on that part here. The idea day 3. This is more when we have a portfolio of ideas. Let's say you have done the Marathon des Idées, then you have a bunch of ideas like this. How you manage these ideas and compare them together. Okay? So that's you have a portfolio of ideas, and you see how we manage these ideas. Then day 4, we look at advanced metrics and frameworks. This is a more technique, how to sort ideas. For instance, we have this 3 horizon framework. Think of short-term ideas, the one we can do directly now, because we have everything. Mid-term and long-term ideas that we need to build capacity, skills to realize them. Day 5, this is really the corporate aspect. If your goal, because you have multiple goals after when you graduate from this school, but you can create your own company, or you can go work in a corporation. Could be any company, SME here in the area. You have to understand how you manage projects in companies. So it's very important to understand how to work in companies for this. Day 6 are the tools. So we looked at all the tools, okay? And the good thing is that you'll be using these tools for your own project. So, things will be familiar, but we'll see that we also have lots of tools also to manage customer feedback, for instance, very important. Day 7 is how to open the innovation process. So we look at open innovation, crowdsourcing. I think you heard about crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, and all those things. It's very, trendy, and tools and method. So crowdfunding and crowdsourcing is a type of open innovation. Okay, there's many other types, but it's what it is. And then we look at the future of innovation assessment methods. What's my take on the future, and what people do. This is typically companies that work in this area. Dublin, Ideal. Who knows Ideal? Who knows any of these companies? Okay. Well, because you know, I mean, when you get experience in this field of innovation, you'll know all these companies. So I think for me it's important actually that I tell you this company exists, but this company are mostly in the US. Dublin is actually also a worldwide lithium. And InnoSight is very important. It's actually, I'll explain what it is. And likely when you're done, you might actually work in one of these companies, because this company actually create product. Typically, IDEO is behind the iPod and the iPhone, because Apple doesn't work really by itself. Apple is working with IDEO, they're working on these companies. So Apple is just putting things together. But I explained how the iPod was created, and basically it's companies IDEO that really create the iPod. Okay, so you'll see that things. That's why I think it's important that you know these companies. Okay, this is just a few things to know who your speaker is. So I'm Swiss. I was born in Switzerland. I did all my studies at EPFL some time ago. I did computer science, informatique, and then I did a PhD in mathematics. So, and I never worked in Switzerland. It's actually the first time I work in Switzerland. I lived in New York, large part of my life. Then I lived in Japan, in Tokyo for 5 years. So I was here, and then I went to New York. Then I lived in Japan. This is my kids, my 2 kids that were born in Japan. I worked for IBM most of my life. I work in research. So I work in the research division of IBM. So my function, my role was to come up with ideas. And so I filed a lot of patents, about 10. And I was basically paid to think, so it's a good thing here. And when I was in Tokyo, I also worked for IBM. And at some point, I even went to Africa. I opened a company in Nigeria. I was feeling ambitious. So I was in Lagos. This is Lagos. I don't know if you've been in Lagos before, but this is how it looks like pretty much every day. So it's, but I love Africa. So it was a good experience. And I came back to Switzerland. I did several things. I explained. This is my class in Japan. So I'm teaching a class. Usually I have more people. If not everybody was there today. But I teach basically the segue to this class. It's the next after that. It's how we create products with modeling methods. So it's something that, think of Legos, right? Think of Legos, and you want to create a product, and you try to put things together. So this is what I'm teaching in Japan. So we have fun. We use 3D printing. We create prototypes, pretty much everything. So yeah, so that's what I'm teaching next week. I've been working for, beside IBM, I've been working for many companies, advising them. This is my company I created a few years ago, Strong Code. Also, I advise these companies here. I did farming as well a few years ago, because I have interest in farming, so I help but mostly to optimize the farming process. Actually, I know rice culture quite well. That was years ago. I tell you also you can innovate by linking technology from Japan and Africa. You can actually contribute, which is very, separate and very different industries and stuff. And it's not because Google exists that thing will be automatically connected. So you actually need to put a lot of effort in connecting cultures and technology. So you'll see. I'll explain to you some of this. So this is a company I was advising. So Strong Code, this is what we were doing here. So what we were doing with my colleagues, obviously you look much younger than me. But so we actually protecting apps. So we make sure that it's very difficult to hack a app that we're protecting. So it's called reverse engineering. Who knows what reverse engineering is? Okay, everybody's computer science. Okay, computer science. No? So how do you know? Games, right?
No, in watchmaking.
Watchmaking? Oh, okay. Hardware reverse engineering. Okay. Do you use software in reverse engineering?
Yes.
Okay. So you know EDAP Pro or Hopper. Okay, all these things. Okay. Okay. So we need to talk because I'm hiring a lot of people. No, actually, I'm not kidding. Actually, I have a 10 more position for next year. So I'm really trying to hire people. I'm opening a big lab now in Yverdon for Snap. So, okay, so all right. And so we're protecting apps. And you know, it's a longer project, ID validation method that we use. We do an MVP. You know what an MVP is, minimal viable product. So I explain what it is. It's one way to validate all your, we learned to do this in this class. One way we validate this, our ideas as a product, so we do an MVP. Who heard about the MVP before? Okay, fantastic, oh good, okay. It's not the most valuable player, right? You know that, it's not, okay. Because people get confused. So in innovation, it stands for the minimal viable product, which from its name, I think you can understand that is that minimal means in that case that what we do with the least amount of money or cost or effort of anything that can measure the effort that we do, but most of it's money, is that to make sure that this is a good idea or not, right? It's all about idea validation. So that's what it is. Okay, so also this is another thing another company advised before. I'm just giving this as a way for you to compare that there's multiple ways to validate ideas. One way is actually to create the MVP. One way is to create a pilot. So actually this people at Novaxis here, we actually were putting the customer in the loop. We're working with the customer, so you can actually directly work with the customer. One way to relate this to your project is that your customer is going to be the company you're working with. And you're going to work with them. So it's important to understand what they want, to put them in the loop. You'll see that the tool that we have for idea management is good to put them in the loop. Because you'll be able to share your ideas with your customer, the company you work with, and they'll be able to vote for the ideas. Like the like you put on Facebook, right? Who still uses Facebook? Okay, so you know the likes, right? So you can put the likes. And so basically this is it. You can actually share your ideas with your customer and they will be able to put likes. I mean, to vote, yes or no. Actually, we have also the thumb down. So you don't like the idea. It's not yet on Facebook, right? Facebook, you have, okay, you have the moods now, right? Okay. But before, like sometimes you only have the thumb up. You couldn't put a thumb down. So, but in contrast, in YouTube, you can do this. Viability. So, you know, we'll see what it is. But in general, the idea selection framework I'll introduce is desirability, viability, and feasibility. I'll get back to this. This is company also I help for some time. They're in the US and France. So I have the 20 people company. They're a company that you know, it's hard for them to innovate because they've been in the business for some time. So I was providing them with fresh, you know, ideas and fresh thoughts to get to the next level. Okay, and to give you a few examples, so we went through my own startup company, 2 companies that I helped before. So my own startup, Novaxis, Sodius, different Novaxis, another startup company. Sodius, not a startup anymore. They've been there for about 7, 8 years, but profitable. Had to get to the next stage for innovation. And let's look at now large companies, how they do. So first of all these companies like Google, Disney, and Bank of America, GE, General Electric, they don't come up with ideas like this, you know, without having a very diligent and precise idea management process. Okay, the next Disney feature is something that really they're working the whole year. So what's the next idea we have? Okay, and Google also is really prolific in using their employees to generate all these ideas. So think of it, when a large company coming up with a new product, there will be somewhere an R&D team that is the only function of this team is to think about new stuff to do, right? And then when they have a new stuff, then they will implement it, they have to test it. So, but not all companies are good to find new ideas. Not all companies, and this is the important part, are good to test ideas. Many times, they don't spend much time testing. And that's why it makes the difference between good ideas that make money and ideas that do not make any money. And most idea you see in the market, because you noticed the idea, then it was a good idea. Because you noticed, oh, there's a new product, it's interesting, right? But then there's 1,000 other ideas you never noticed, and that was a complete failure. And most of the time, this is what happens in some of these companies, that they come up with things, and it's not a success. Why? Because it was not tested well. They did not test the idea well. Idea testing, which we'll see what that means exactly. Idea testing in the market is actually a research area. People always try to find new ways to test ideas. Who have heard of A/B testing? Okay, tell us about it.
You test your ideas at the same time.
Yeah.
And then you choose the best one, and then you can make another comparison.
Yeah.
With other ideas.
Yeah. Give me an example of applying that. Where do you apply this?
For Google AdWords.
Yeah. Exactly.
We had 2 ads.
Yeah.
And then they were not a lot different, but only a little.
Yeah. Very little difference.
And then we choose the first.
And how do you compare it? What's the metric?
Metrics.
Yeah.
I don't remember the terms, but the number of clicks.
Right, exactly. So how do you do A/B testing? I put 2 ads, okay? And I don't put next to each other, because you can do this, but it's not as efficient. But like, I have the traffic to my website. For some part of the traffic, let's say 10%, I put them to this ad, A. Another part of the traffic, 90%, I put them to B, okay? And I test if the new ad, A, is actually more efficient in B to gather clicks. So I don't need to change all my website at once and say, hey, let's change everything, okay, and then see if it works better. I can do small tests with the new method, okay, see if it works better, and then I can everybody switch to A. We let down B and we switch to A, okay? So you can do this for website, you can do this for things. So A/B testing is actually a very efficient way to do this. This is one way to test ideas, okay? So if you Google online, say, hey, what is A/B testing? So it's really A/B testing, right? So you can go and they explain how they do this. So it's actually something that is one of the methods to validate. So you see, this is new. When I mean this is new, it's only 5 years old, 4 years old, perhaps. So there will always be new methods to test idea. And why is it becoming very important to research methods to test ideas? Because now we have access with social networks. We have access to people. The people like, don't like, right? Before, to test idea, well, you have to call people, inquiry at home, they call you, hey, you want to answer a few questions, okay? So that was much more difficult. Or people fill up surveys, right? You go in the street and say, can you give us your opinion on that? So it was much more difficult to gather opinion. So you heard about sentiment analysis. We heard about sentiment analysis. There's Twitter sentiment analysis. Actually, everybody's doing this today. I was reviewing we will be at the EPFL forum to look for candidates. And I was looking at candidate CVs. And everybody has sentiment analysis, Twitter sentiment analysis in their stuff. So people go on the Twitter feed and they try to understand how people feel about some topics, okay? So that's basically all the new validation methods that exist today. Let's see a few of these companies, how they work. So Disney, for instance, you can read. Okay, one thing also, I put a lot of text here. It's not for you to read everything during the class. It's for you after the class to go and you can see more details. You don't need, and also, this is a lot of information. You don't need to know everything. Okay, you need to understand what the important aspect of it, but you don't need to know everything. So that's why I only go over 2 examples here. Let's look at Disney. Disney, 3 times a year, the CEO of top executive, they devote a day to listening to anybody and everybody in the company. If you work as a janitor, as a secretary, as an engineer, as a marketer, as a financier, it doesn't matter. They want to hear everybody's idea. Hey, what's your idea for the next feature? Why? Why do you think they listen to everybody and not only people that are in research? Why do you think?
Different point of view.
Yeah? And why is it important for Disney?
They need to touch everybody.
Yeah, because the market is everybody. Right? That's the important thing. Disney's market is everybody. Who doesn't like Disney movies? All right? Okay, one. But you might be a minority. I'm not a big fan myself because, you know, it's okay. I've seen like a few ones, right? But my kids, they love it. My wife loves Disney movies, you know. So it's cool. You see, most people really like this kind of things, right? So because the market is everybody, they need to ask everybody's ideas. And some of this feature, for instance, like Little Mermaid. Who saw Little Mermaid? Okay. La Petite Sirène, right? This is coming from some secretary who works there, the idea. So, you know, I don't know how she managed the royalties and the thing. But one thing, you cannot put a patent on an idea. An idea is an idea. Everybody got ideas. You cannot really protect an idea for such. You have to protect an embodiment of the idea, like some code or some implementation and stuff. But this is how they work. So they will ask everybody. For instance, I'll give you an example before we break. Let's say you want to make a movie, right? And you want to know if it is a good idea for a movie or not. So what can you do to test it? You can ask your mom. Whenever I ask my mom if it's a good idea, but always say it's a good idea. Yeah, it's a good idea, son, it's good, you know? So I'm not sure if I don't see if that would be a good market idea. So what can I do? Let's write let's write the title of my movie, 2 sentences in the description, and then mix this with 5 other movies that exist for real. Okay, general movies. Okay, general public movies. I have like 6 or 7 movies in the list, and then I go to a place where I think my public is, my market is. Then I go to McDonald's, and I ask random people, hey, I'll buy you a burger if you tell me which movie you'd like to see here. He's going to read, and he's going to pick one. If nobody picks your idea, it might not be a good one. But this is one of the best way to test. Why? Because you don't ask about opinion. If you think this is a good idea, no, you look at behavior. You're not telling anything about the outcome. You're not telling which one is yours. So there's no bias. Okay? But you're asking actually which one you like to see. So you're testing people's behavior. Perhaps you have seen that market testing when there's some psychologists that put people in a room and they ask them to do something. And you don't know really why you tested. Or you think you tested for something else, but actually you're testing for something you don't know. Right? It's called behavior testing. So behavior testing is much more powerful than opinion testing. We'll see. I have charts about this later. But that's what I want to tell you before we break. So let's break for 15 minutes, and then let's go back at 11. Is that fine with English? Is fine? Okay, good. So I try to speak slowly, so if any question, ask me. And we'll recess we'll resume in 11 o'clock. All right. So let's go for 30 more minutes, 40 minutes, something like that, 30 to 40 minutes. So to complete the first day of this class, something perhaps like, I think is very important, you need, I guess, to pay attention to these charts, and especially that part here. There's a lot of criteria you can use for selecting an idea, right? And again, it depends what's your function or your role. If you're an R&D team, if you're a portfolio manager, or if you're a CEO, it depends, the type of criteria you will use. For instance, if you're in established companies, again, these are a lot of text because I just want you don't have to take notes in this class, right? You just have to go back on these charts and you can, so take me a bit more time to create them, but after, it saves you time to make sure that you can focus on listening to me and not taking notes. So does this idea fit our innovation strategy, right? Does it create new value for our clients? Is there a demand for this innovation? These are all the type of question when you're company you might ask yourself. A second, and this is actually perhaps the most important thing here, because you guys are an R&D function. So there's 3 things you need to ask yourselves. And pay attention because that's perhaps the only thing you might remember about this class, when everything is over. Is the solution desirable? Will customer want it? That's the first question you need to ask yourself. Is my solution desirable? The second thing is the solution viable? Okay, what does it mean? In short, can I make money with it? Is it viable? If it costs you more than it gives you back, then it might not be very good, profitable. So it's not a good idea to do it. Will it create? But the good way to put it is that will it create more value than the investment required to create it? Okay. And the last question is the solution feasible? Technically, can we make it? Do we have all the technology to make it? So these are the 3 things we need to remember. Is that desirable, viable, and feasible? And in this class, we'll see methods to test each of these types of assumptions. Okay? We'll test it is desirable, or we'll test is it viable, or is it feasible? If it is desirable, how can we test it? We just saw an example before. What was the example I gave you before to test if an idea is desirable? Tell me. Yeah.
Put your idea in the middle of other ideas.
Exactly. That's the movie test, right? We did before. So this is typically a test if it's desirable. What is another test that we used to see if it is desirable or not? We just talked about it before, just before the movie test. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you guys following. Very good. So testing desirability can be done in many ways, but there's also technology to do it, like A/B testing, right? Or like, having what we call a behavioral test, a test on behavior, un test de comportement, like the one we did in McDonald's with the list of movies and so on. We'll see feasible is technology. It's a bit different, but we'll focus a lot on the first 2, desirable and viable. Now from the R&D team perspective, okay? We always say there's too many ideas, not too few. But okay, that's fine. It's a good thing, actually. There's too many ideas. But there might be too many half-baked ideas, okay? So basically, we're there. And it's normal. You will try to think of all the things you can think of and, clutter this first part of the funnel with a bunch of ideas. And actually, sorry, there's a typo. This is VE. Here's not ELF. As actually one of you asked before, is that what do we do with all this idea that we don't use? Then we shelve the idea for the next party, right? So actually, that's a good thing when you use actually an idea management system, is that actually you can use these ideas again later, okay? But first, when you have a lot of ideas, you need to use simple criteria to select them. So basic selection process. We'll see this with the tool. And we'll actually capture the ideas in the tool, typically like this. So you see the number of ideas that will be stored in the thing, and you will see some, this is typically the name of the project. And for this idea, we'll be able to share them, to vote for them, and to do other things. So basically, all the selection method that we'll talk about here, we'll implement them with the tool. So it makes your life much easier. Basic selection method that we have, it's good actually to do a checklist for idea evaluation. This is an example of a checklist here. And actually this thing is no, okay, it stopped working. So I don't have any more pointer, no? Okay, so, sorry, no more pointer. Okay, so typically what you can do is that if you don't want to forget a criterion of evaluation for your idea, you can actually make a checklist, okay? This is typically a good checklist that you can use yourself when used. So for instance, have you considered all the advantage and benefit of the ideas? Is there a real need for it? The way you can answer these questions also depends on the information you have, right? It's not always, the answer always will be, up to what you know at the moment, okay? But basically, at the beginning, you will select the ideas based on simple criteria, okay? And I will see the type of criteria you can use. But typically, a checklist is a good method. An easy way to select idea here is to have simply a simple, what we call scorecard. Scorecard is une carte pour mettre le score de l'idée, okay? So basically, we can, for each idea, we can put a grade from 1 to 10, and we can say, okay, these are the ideas here, and these are the criteria I use to select them. And very simple, I can say, what is the novelty of the idea? What is the attractiveness of the idea? What is the feasibility of the ideas? To answer these questions, obviously, if you're a very technical person, then you might actually be better to answer this. Or if you're a non-technical person, it will be more difficult to put the right grade here. But you work as a team, and everybody in the team, is trying to help you how to fill this thing. And when you fill the grades here, you can put a score, and then you can see which idea actually might prevail. Yes, question?
Between like novelty, attractiveness, and feasibility,
yeah.
Is it one criterion that is more important than other one? Or?
That's a good question. Actually, this is just an example, and it always varies according to your project. But you could say, yes, in some question, to answer your question, yes, novelty could be more important. So we could actually put a weight here, a weight to that thing, say, oh, this is counts for double. So I put 5, then actually it's counts for 10, and it will actually balance the score in different ways. So you can definitely do this. But typically for your project at the beginning, especially when you have 300 ideas, just choose 3 criteria that seems to be important for you and that your team can help you assess. And once you have an assessment for each of these criteria here, then you can grade and you can score your ideas like this, okay? The tool actually allows you to do that, okay? You can actually do a scorecard. So we have a little scorecard for each idea, and you have sliders that you can put with it. So you just discuss with your team and put sliders on the right way, and they will sort out ideas. So you will see ideas sorted out in the tool, okay? So that's, I think, a good way, and you will see how to create scorecards in the tool. But you can do this. One thing also, the sticky notes. This is another way. Oh, let's put it in one way. This one here is one that you can implement with the tool. This one here is with the idea wall. So again, last year I think we used the sticky notes, right, to put some points, color dots on the ideas. But I think this year we could actually do the same with the idea wall, right? We could put a color, and you will see with the idea wall, we can also put labels. Okay, so we'll choose labels, and we can select things by label. For instance, well, we'll see this later. But if I go to my idea wall, and I actually put this one here doesn't have any label. So what I can put here is like, sorry, it's in Japanese, but this means like add a label. Okay. So I can say, hey, this ID is about a car, sport, and super. Okay. And then I add thing here. So then I can select all my super ideas. Or I can select my sport ID or my product ID, so it disappeared, right? So you see, you can use sticky dots or you can use the idea wall to do this thing. But it's the same principle. Okay? But like, you know, if you want to use sticky dots, you're welcome to do that. A more complex method, you don't have to use this, and you don't have to understand the details. But it's just, I want you to know that exists as well. There are sophisticated methods, especially that exist in Japan, to select method, okay? To select ideas. So it's, you know, very technical. You don't have to understand that, how it works. But basically, this is something that is called the Kano method, is to use thing here. It's called quality function development. That's what it means here. Anybody can read that? No. Okay. It's pronounced 品質機能展開プロセス. Then people use that in Japan typically for that. Which basically this means quality of the product, function, and deployment. All right. Then something perhaps you're aware of it. You have used that before. It's called a SWAT. Who knows a SWAT? Okay. So people have used SWAT analysis before. So SWOT analysis is also a sophisticated way to select ideas. And you look at strength, weaknesses, this is the S and W, opportunity and threats. Okay? So obviously, we're not doing this for all the 300 ideas that we have. A SWOT might actually come at the very end, where we select like 3 ideas, and we try to do the SWOT for this. But you're not going to do a SWOT for 300. Neither would you do a Kano method or apply Kano method for 200 ideas. For 300 ideas, what would you do? But typically sticky dots, right? Or the idea wall. We'll be able to select our ideas with the idea wall. And then, when we have, out of 300, when we have 30 ideas left, then we use this, right? Okay? So, and we'll see this in the tool. The first thing we do is that to go through 300 ideas, we'll use the sticky dots or the idea wall. And then we'll select these ideas into 30. And then from 30 ideas, we might use this. Okay? I think that will be efficient. There are many, yeah, question?
How do you manage 6 point of views, given we're 6 in a group for 300 ideas?
That's going to be a challenge. I'm going to talk about this after. It's called creative conspiracy. Okay. I have an answer for everything, right? No, but I love your questions. You know, people is legitimate actually to ask the kind of thing. It's difficult to collaborate. The thing I haven't mentioned in this thing, like, you know, you're going to learn really to work together, right? And to get Pierre's opinion. So, and obviously you're not the first one doing this. So I have some tips also to manage this. But it's a very important point. Thanks for asking. So, okay, so there are many types of ID selection method that you can use. Actually, I list 25 of them here. Again, it's just for your general knowledge. You might not use, I think if you use scorecard, sticky dots, this will go a long way. You don't need to use all these things. But just for you to know that people work on many type of things. It's called ABC analysis, anonymous voting. We'll do voting, cost-benefit analysis. There's many things here. I did an Excel sheet. Actually, I'm going to put it also in Canvas and with a summary of what it is. But you know, you're free to use whatever you want. But I think at least this is. In some cases, it might work better. What I would advise you is that if you wonder if you could use that method for your project, to ask me, and we can discuss about it, right? If you feeling you could use this, it will be a better method for you to use. How do you want to test? Again, here, no worry, lots of text. This is really for you to don't have to take notes. But here, important thing is this 3 things here. We organize assumption, so all your ideas, all the questions you have in relation with your ideas will be classified under 3 umbrellas of assumptions. Let me close the door. Again, sorry, should have done that before. So they all classify under 3 types of assumption. Assumption that are attached to desirability, assumption attached to viability, and the one to feasibility. Okay? There are 3 types of. And what you need to come up with is a testing framework. Okay? A way to test. So when you have you go 300, you might go to vote for 100 ideas, and then you will apply a scorecard on 100 to get 30 ideas. Then for these ideas, to make sure they're really good ones, you will come up with a testing framework, right? And this will be the cahier scenario. Okay, so you basically do scenarios for that kind of things. So, and remember, if after a lot of stages, the 10 ideas you selected are not that good, you can go back to the 300, right? So you can do. Some groups have done that. They perhaps pigeonhole themselves into some ideas that were not that interesting eventually, so they had to go back to the 300 ideas and select a bit more. So it's not, it's iterative. So it's not. And remember, this is the thing here. You have to remember this chart also. Testing and failure. Do not postpone real feedback. Okay? This is something I tell everybody in my class. Whatever you do, this is also in life, right? Do not delay the possibility of failure. If you have to fail as soon as possible. Don't try to pursue something that, might not be such a good idea, right? This is really, and because you need to be efficient, and that's so do not postpone real feedback. So try to get real feedback. Do not be afraid of real feedback. In this case, with your stakeholders, and who's your main stakeholder in that case? Is the sponsor company, right? You'll be working with the sponsor company, so always try to get their feedback about the ideas. It's important to get the real feedback. So therefore, do not be afraid of feedback. Get it from unbiased sources. So perhaps your mom is not the best source because she likes everything you do. Right? Get it as soon as possible. Learn from the feedback and tune the idea for the next iteration. Okay? Desirability assumption is something I mentioned before. Test behavior, not opinion, whenever possible. Sometimes you have to ask opinion, right? But if you can test behavior, it's better. Why? People are notorious to say one thing and do the opposite, right? Say, yeah, I'll do that, but then they do something else. Example, this is the McDonald's example I gave you before. Okay? Your movie, in a list, showing to people a McDonald's and thing. Remember, if you want them to help you, you have to buy them a Big Mac. If you don't buy the Big Mac, they're not going to take time to read your ideas. It's obviously it's a tongue-in-cheek type of thing, but you need to understand, you need to incentivize people to help you. If people, it could be your sponsor, stakeholders, people you ask, it's always better if you, because people, they work better when they're incentivized. So incentivization, like the word like that. The way to incentivize people actually is a good, it's a good method to add. Viability assumption. So this is attached to the business model, to the idea. So can we make something out of it? For instance, do the economics work? Who has a background in finance here? Great. More. Four people. This is great because I think it's good that people really work the numbers sometime, right? You cannot have all the details, but at least you need to understand if do the number work, right? Is the risk worth the reward, right? Okay, if there's a lot of risk, then what is the payoff? If it doesn't pay off anything, then, it's not. Is the idea sustainable in the long term, right? So, is this people will buy again, or if it is just a fad? You know what a fad is? A fad, comment on dit en français, a fad? Voilà, une mode ou comme ça, une mode. Voilà, quelque chose comme ça. I don't know if this is exactly word fad in French, but like a fad is just like for a moment and then it disappears, right? So assumptions for viability are typically the hardest to test because they require projection over long periods. And last, feasibility. Is it possible to realize the idea? It could be technically, it could be in terms of skills. For instance, if you do something in chemistry and there's no chemist with your team, that's going to be quite hard, right? So you need to have people with the, right? So perhaps it's not because, you don't have the budget or the thing, but also you don't have the skills. And sometimes the technology does not exist, right? You might have to come up with it. So it's so feasibility is one thing that is important. Again, I'm not reading that text. This is really for your own study. How will you test? So that's basically the method. How do we test these things? How do we test desirability, viability, and feasibility? So for desirability, remember that, and I'm repeating often things, right? Because that there's a lot of redundancy in these charts. Test behavior, not opinions. Whenever possible, try to test people behavior. Vous testez leur comportement, vous leur posez pas la question. Whenever possible, okay? Because sometimes it's not possible. Test quickly. Do not delay the possibility of failure. The second, check as soon as possible if the dog eats its food. You know what that means? Because you cannot fake it to a dog. If you give the dog his food and he eats it, then it's dog food. If he doesn't eat it like this, it could look very good to you. For instance, I might give I like pizza, right? I might give a very nice pizza to my dog, but he doesn't like pizza. He wants some kind of corned beef or something you don't want to eat, right? But it doesn't matter because the market decides. So your dog is the market, so it decides. Sometimes you can think, you go to the market with the ID you think is a very good ID, but nobody buys it because it's not dog food, right? It's not food for your market, okay? Then a few things here. This is also something I always said, and it's good to apply. Actually, I read that in a book about 20 years ago. Everything is a test. I don't know if you apply this, but whenever I do something, I do it very seriously because it could be a test. It's always a test. Everything is a test, right? So try to think in this way. It helps. Example of test strategies. Okay, I mentioned a few things. You can do a fake product. What's a fake product? For instance, I want to sell travel online. But I don't want to do the whole work first. I want to see if there really people would like to buy travel online. I can put a website. Do travel, free travel, right? And click here. see how many people click. If nobody clicks, it might not be a good idea. If people click, it might be a good idea. Okay? Fake product, you can do, people do very often this, right? They do a fake product just to test if people like it, right? Before building the real one. Why you don't want to build the real one first? What do you think? Yeah, you don't want to spend the money, right, first. You don't want to spend all the money and then, oh, it didn't work. Too bad, right? So you try to test it with a minimal cost. What's the Flintstone? Who knows the Flintstone? C'est quoi le nom en français? Les pierres à feu. Why a Flintstone? Why do you think a Flintstone?
Because it's the initial spark that actually breaks up the fire. You can't start it without having a Flintstone. The actual definition of the word per se, you need to start with.
This is too sophisticated. It's actually much simpler than that. But you might be on the right path. The Flintstone, they have this car that runs, but doesn't have an engine. Right? So you see the car, but there's no engine inside. So this is the same principle. You can make the product that looks like the product, but there's no engine inside. Because it costs you too much to do the engine. You want to test if the car is good, if people like it, and then you build the engine. Yes?
What's the difference with the fake product then?
Oh, the fake product is nothing else. It's just like a front. For instance, you will do little parts. Let me give you an example. Who knows Zappos? If you live in New York, you will know Zappos. It's a shoe store, online shoe store. It makes like billions of dollar revenue a year. Zappos was the first online shoe store. So the guy who did Zappos, before creating Zappos, what he did is that he wondered, will people buy shoes online? That first assumption he was making. Question, will people buy shoes online? And will people buy shoes with a credit card online? So how does he do? He put a website, okay? Go in shoe store in New York, the many shoe stores in New York, right? Take pictures of the shoe, put it online, a price, and when somebody orders, he goes in the store, buys it himself, put it in a box, and send it. When he realized there was like tens and perhaps more order a day, he called a venture capitalist and say, hey, I think we have an idea here. And say, now I need a few million to do a warehouse, supply chain, build the website properly and anything. So the Flintstones, that he did all himself. He went really to buy the shoes, put pictures, sell it. That's a good way to test, right? So, and it works. So, and then he calls some guy with a lot of money and say, hey, let's do it. I need a few million to do that, right? So that's a Flintstone. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. So, and then the MVP, it's always a bit more details, right? So this one has no details, fake product. This one a bit more details and more details. So this is example of testing strategy you can use. So you're going to use this in your project, right? For your project, you might do a fake, you might do a Flintstone, you might do an MVP. There's no really agreed upon boundary for that thing. Oh, this is an MVP, this is a Flintstone. It's just, you know, some kind of concept that people use to, okay, what I'm going to do for now. Okay? But typically, you will do your MVP, or you can call it Flintstone with your group yourself. Typically, cahier des scénarios will be going around like MVPs and the like. What do you learn? We're almost done. What will you learn from the test? Okay? You can do focused learning. We'll see what that means. Look at figures and metrics. Unfocused learning. Just use your senses. Both are good. Don't think you always need to measure results. Okay? It's really creativity too. Use your gut feeling too, right? You can measure things, but also use your gut feeling. So you can do focused and unfocused learning, right? So read that. What are your expectations? What are the go, no-go criteria? How do you decide if you go with this idea or not go with this idea? What are the next step after the test? So that doesn't really apply for you here, but I just wanted you to know this. But you're working with your sponsor company. But basically, when you have green light action, meet with venture capitalists. That this is the Zappos story, right? When the guy saw that people were ordering online shoes and they were not afraid to use their credit card to pay. Okay, he didn't make any money on the first shoe, right? Because he had to go himself, buy it, send it. Perhaps he made no money for that. But he validated the idea that you can actually sell shoes online, right? So that's, you meet, call venture capitalists, say, I need a few millions. Okay? Apply for funding. There's many ways in Switzerland to do this, if once you have your own startup company. But there's many ways to get money for your ideas. So, entrepreneurship is a great experience. So that's the dog. If this is the reaction for your market, perhaps that's not the right idea. I'm trying to feed my dog with pizza. It didn't work. All right? So, okay? So that's basically the thing. So we've seen that before today, the class repo, Canvas. So I don't need to go over this again. I've put some charts. You can see where the syllabus is. This is for your class, right? And you will be graded with 3 components. And participation in the class is actually a good thing, actually. I think it's good also to participate. So I'm not really formally grading for people to participate, but I appreciate people participate, obviously. Discussion will take place in the tool. So whenever you have discussion, please, put a question there. And I answer for everybody like this, right? And there's no dumb question. Put your question in French, in English, in Spanish, or whatever language you want to use. It doesn't matter. And I'll answer in English or French for everybody. We can decide, basically. Or we can Google Translate and can translate like that. It works very well. Remember that each class, typo appears. There's an S missing in the calendar with all necessary links. So we can have each class here with what we saw today as far as the charts are concerned, and also the discussion we have for things. So that's it. So we're done for this morning. Take a break, go for lunch. We'll get back here at 1. Okay, so you have we have an hour and 20 minutes. We get back here at 1, and we're gonna have fun this afternoon. We're gonna capture ideas with voice, see our idea walls, ideas popping up on our walls, okay? So, and we'll do all the settings together. Install Google Keep on your smartphone already, so you're done, okay? Okay?